Welcome to Mrs. Feighery's video number 3 for Chapter 32, The Politics of Boom and Bust. In 1928, Calvin Coolidge said, "I do not choose to run," and his logical successor immediately became economics genius Herbert Hoover. Hoover spoke of rugged individualism, which was his view that America was made great by strong, self-sufficient individuals, like the pioneers of old days, trekking across the prairies, relying on no one else for help. This was the kind of folk America still needed, he said. Hoover was opposed by New York Governor Alfred Smith, a man who was blanketed by scandal. He drank during a prohibitionist era and was hindered politically by being a Roman Catholic. Radio turned out to be an important factor in the campaign, and Hoover's personality sparkled with this new medium, compared to Smith, who sounded boyish. Hoover had never been elected to public office before, but had made his way up from poverty to prosperity, and believed that other people could do so as well. There was once again below-the-belt hitting on both sides as the campaign took an ugly turn. Hoover triumphed in a landslide, with 444 electoral votes to Smith's 87. The first moves that Hoover made as president to try to deal with the economic issues that we were having were not very impactful. Hoover's Agricultural Marketing Act was passed and was designed to help the farmers help themselves, and it set up a federal farm board to help the farmers. In 1930, the Farm Board created the Grain Stabilization Corporation and the Cotton Stabilization Corporation to bolster sagging prices by buying surpluses. The Hawley-Smoot Tariff of 1930 raised the tariff to an unbelievable 60%. Foreigners hated this tariff that reversed a promising worldwide trend towards reasonable tariffs and widened the trade gaps. Hoover confidently predicted an end to poverty very soon, but on October 29, 1929, a devastating stock market crash struck the nation. This crash became known as Black Tuesday and was caused by over-speculation and overly high stock prices built upon non-existent credit. Losses, even blue-chip securities, were unbelievable as by the end of 1929. Stockholders had lost over $40 million in paper values, more than the cost of World War I. By the end of 1930, 4 million Americans were jobless, and 2 years later, that number shot up to 12 million. Over 5,000 banks collapsed in the first 3 years of the Great Depression. Lines formed at soup kitchens and at homeless shelters. The Great Depression might have been caused by an overabundance of farm products and factory products. The nation's capacity to produce goods had clearly outrun its capacity to consume or pay for them. Also, an overexpansion of credit created unsound faith in money, which is never good for business. Britain and France's situations, which had never fully recovered from World War I, became worse as well. In 1930, a terrible drought scorched the Mississippi Valley, and thousands of farms were sold to pay for debts. By 1930, the Depression was a national crisis, and hard-working workers had nowhere to work. Thus, people turned bitter and also turned on Herbert Hoover. Villages of shanties and ragged shacks were called Hoovervilles and were inhabited by the people who had lost their jobs, and they popped up everywhere. There is a Hooverville shown in this picture in 1937 in Seattle, and this Hooverville was occupied by more than 1,000 men, women, and children. Hoover unfairly received the brunt of the blame for the Great Depression, but he also did not pass measures that could have made the Depression less severe than it could have been. Critics noted that he could feed millions in Belgium after World War I, but not millions at home in America. He did not believe in government tampering with the economic machine, thus moving away from laissez-faire, and he felt that depressions like this were simply parts of the natural economic process known as the business cycle. However, by the end of his term, he had started to take steps for the government to help the people. And we'll discuss the steps that Hoover took in our next video. This is the Works Cited page. All images used in this presentation are from the public domain.